friends, Farmer Judey here. Today, my green friends and I are going to talk about the different parts that make them up. We're talking about parts of the plant. You guys remember bean dip? A bean dip has different parts, just like I have a head and arms and a trunk or a torso and legs. A plant has different parts that make up its body, right? So we have the long green part. The long green part is called the stem. Now this is not part of the stem. This was a support that I used to help the stem.
Hello boys and girls! Here's a great example of a stem. Look at this sunflower plant, and it's got a really long, tall stem. It's taller than me. I think it's probably 9 or 10 feet.
Oh my gosh.
But the stem is providing a support structure for leaves and the flower and the seeds, and it's very strong. This is like wood. This is an example of a very strong, tall stem.
Well, is it alive or is it dead?
It's dead, but it's still very strong. So here we have some examples of stems, different stems. These are actually 2 varieties of chard. This is a red chard, and I'm gonna take off one of the leaves here, or stems. Well, look at that stem there. Very red. And its function is to give support to the leaf, but also there's nutrients and water flowing up into the leaf, and the leaf is sharing its energy that it's creating with the rest of the plant. Now look at this stem over here. This is another type of chard, Swiss chard. I'm gonna pull off a leaf here. Stem, white stem chard. Look at that. And you can see this stem is white. Both chards, different colors, but same function. And very tasty. So, Farmer Judey and I love to eat these stems of the chard, but like the sunflower that we showed, that stem is too hard. It's too woody. It's like a tree almost. You can't really eat that. Here's another example. This is a rosemary. And you can see these
look at all those
stems are very woody. Look at that. Now these stems, there's so many that we call them branches because there's so many coming out. But look how hard it is. I can barely break it with one hand. It's almost dry in there. It's very woody. So you won't find Farmer Brian or Farmer Judey eating those, but we would eat the leaves. That we pulled earlier. Now we're going to talk about leaves, and this is a beet leaf. You can see it's very similar. It's a beautiful color here that this stem has, and you can see in these leaves there are veins, and this is where the nutrients come into the leaf, and the leaf is like the powerhouse for the plant. So they're taking the sunlight in, and through a process called photosynthesis, they're creating food that is then sent to the rest of the plant to help it grow. And you have green leaves, but you can also have red leaves. And down here in this bed that we have this cage around, there's some more example of green leaves. And then over here, there's an example of red leaves. This is another red leaf plant. This is a red leaf mustard.
And they're all different shapes and sizes of leaves. So if you take a look at this carrot, I'm actually going to pull off one of the leaves from a carrot so we can take a look at it. Well, there's the long stem. And check out how it branches off into these almost like feathers. It almost looks like a wispy, feathery plant.
Here is a daikon radish. They get huge. And look at this one. It's a big radish. It's as big as my hand. But I want to show you first. Here's the stems, very green stems that this plant has, and the leaves are really cool. You see that? They start way down here. So you can see the first ones here is smaller than the tip of my finger. And they alternate. There's one on this side, a bigger one on this side, and then on the other side another bigger one, and they get bigger as they alternate on each side all the way up the stem here. You get this big one that's almost as big as my hand. And I want to introduce you to a new part of the plant we haven't talked about. Oh, by the way, you can eat this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can cook it up. And the other part here is the root, or roots. But in this case, with the daikon, it creates this huge root. And we can actually eat this root.
Here's some roots we don't eat. Sorry, bean dip plant. Do for a little bean dip plant. All of these little hairs collect water from the soil inside this pot. But all of this soil is being held onto the roots. So, in the ground, these roots will anchor the plant so that it doesn't fall over.
You can see on the sunflower, it used to have roots. There's only a few left. But these roots were anchoring it into the ground. Can you imagine how strong those roots would have to be to hold up this plant with all of its leaves and all of the seeds? What would happen if it didn't have a good anchor?
No, Farmer Brian!
If you haven't watched the radish video yet, you probably should, because you'll see all sorts of ways that we can eat radishes.
There's a root that we eat. And the beautiful green leaves. You can eat all the parts of that plant.
All right, here we are at the garden, and here's another creature feature. Check this guy out. This is a beautiful looking grasshopper. And he's feeling a little sluggish right now. And I think if he goes to the garden and eats more greens, he's probably gonna feel a lot better. I found this leaf, and I think it's some evidence that he's been busy. Or possibly one of his friends. I don't think he likes being confronted with the evidence. He's looking a little guilty. But a lot of grasshoppers can really make short work of your garden. They can eat big holes in the leaves. And what happens when we get holes in the leaves? There's less surface area, there's less area on the leaf, and that means the plant can't produce as much food for itself, as much energy. It has less area pulling in energy from the sun. So a grasshopper, especially if he's got a lot of friends, can really make a plant weak. But in our garden we just have one grasshopper that I've found. And so he's not able to do that much damage, but we're gonna keep a lookout for any friends that he might have called over. That's the creature feature for today.